Hi, this is Ninja2Dan, and we're going to be covering another video for 7.62 high caliber. This video is going to cover vehicles as well as a little bit of a spoiler, which is going to include some basic information about the army base that you'll be doing for one of your missions early in the game. The reason that I consider it a spoiler is because I'm actually going to be showing you the base after I have progressed through the game for quite a bit, so I'm not going to be showing a walkthrough of the mission to take over the base, but because my characters are going to be there to show one of the features there, some people might consider it a spoiler. When I load into the base itself, when I go to my inventory, you see that there's no vehicles shown here. The reason for this is because in preparation for this guide, I have actually parked my vehicle. Sorry, but I'm going to go ahead and actually go to a different save. That way I can go to a bartender to begin. When you do have a vehicle, it doesn't matter what it is, either the starting little car or anything else. When you view your inventory, you'll see the vehicle that you have in the upper corner. On the vehicle, you're going to see two different bars. One of them will be red, one of them will be blue. The red bar will start at the top. That is the vehicle's health. As the vehicle is spawned into mission areas, right now I have the larger truck. So as you can see, anytime you spawn into an area, whichever spawn location you choose, your vehicle will spawn in on the map fairly close to it. In the mission itself, there's no way to interact with the vehicle. You can't click on it to access storage. That is done by simply pressing I and going to your inventory screen and having access to the vehicle storage. The reason the vehicle is there is slightly for a little bit of that realism aspect, and what can happen is during missions, if the vehicle itself is shot up, takes damage, if grenades explode too close to it, the vehicle slowly starts to take damage. You have to really be aware of that, because if the vehicle does completely go out on you, it's destroyed. You lose anything that was in the storage. The blue bar is going to be its current capacity. Different vehicles will have different maximum capacities for the storage. As you fill that storage, the blue bar will go up, and once it goes to the top, it can no longer hold anything else. The storage on a vehicle is divided into two sections. There's the cabin and then the trunk. The cabin is going to be storage that you personally want to keep for later on. The storage for the trunk area is generally anything that's junk, stuff that you want to sell. And the difference is, when you're going through missions and you're doing your looting, anything that happens to be on the ground itself, there's an option that will say move to trunk. If I open the inventory and look at the trunk, when I click that button just once, anything that's on the ground is going to be put into the trunk of your car. The purpose for this is, which I probably will be covering in one of the other videos later on, with certain vendors, when you speak to them, there's an option to sell everything in your trunk all at once. The reason you might want to be doing this is because as you are cleaning up, and it's post-mission, you've already got everybody dead, you're going to see all the different bodies that you've killed, their dead corpses, along with any equipment that they dropped. Anything that is in their person, you'll clean that out. You are generally able to go through all their stuff that's on the floor, pick out what you want to keep and what you want to sell. The method that I use is anything that I want to keep, I will then drag over into the cabin area. Once that's done, everything else that's on the ground I know is junk that I want to sell, so I just hit move to trunk. That way later on, when you do go to one of those vendors, instead of having to sell each item individually, you just choose the option sell everything all at once. Makes it a lot faster. and sometimes it's a little bit rewarding. When you do go to a vendor and you go to sell your items, if you're looking at what's in your inventory, you'll see the dollar values, but trying to go through and sell items this way is very slow. If you've killed 30 enemies, so you've got probably 20-30 weapons, tons of just miscellaneous items that you're going to be selling, having to put that into a character's inventory and then drag and drop and sell everything individually can take quite a while. Personally, I feel that it's not quite as rewarding either, because your money only goes up for each individual item, so you don't really know offhand what you made out of it. On the other hand, if you choose to sell it out of the trunk, because he's buying everything all at once, you're able to get that one single large value that he's wanting to buy your stuff for. So it's a good way to judge how well you did on the mission. So if you have a random encounter, you killed 20 different bandits, you go, you loot them, you pile it all in a trunk. When you do go to a vendor and you go sell it all at once and it says he'll pay $30,000, you can kind of look at that into perspective. How much did you have to spend for ammunition? How much did you have to spend for medical supplies for healing up after the battle? You're able to then look at that and say, like, okay, I just made $30,000. It only cost me $2,000 for supplies. So you made a pretty decent chunk of profit off of those. The cabin storage is also a really good way to be able to sort your items, keep them there, so if you do need to resupply in the field later, you do have that option. I'm also probably going to be covering a little bit of that more under the inventory portion, but generally anything that's stored in the cabin of your vehicle, it's with you anywhere you go. So any sector you enter, you now have access to the trunk. If you are in combat, you are no longer able to immediately access your vehicle. So if you're later on in the game, once you enter a sector, you're immediately in combat. That means that you're stuck carrying and having access to only what your people carry. You can't just run over to your truck and start unloading stuff. But once you've completed a mission, you now have that storage. So if you're carrying spare ammunition, replacement body armor, you're able to replenish from those supplies that you've already looted, instead of having to go to a merchant, hope that they sell the items you need, and then having to buy it all over again. The way that vehicles work is, one of your early missions, you're going to be getting just a basic vehicle. You can only have one vehicle at a time that's active. In order to upgrade later on to a bigger vehicle, such as this truck, there's another mission, and I'm not going to give away too many spoilers for that, but once you've completed that mission, you then get the truck as a reward. The catch is, in order to do that mission, you cannot have a vehicle in your inventory that is active. The reason is because when you complete the mission, you're immediately given the truck. Since you can't have two at once, it doesn't want to just throw away and delete your old vehicle. So what you have to do is, when you go to any bartender, you're going to have the option where he's going to hold the vehicle for you. So you pay him a little bit of money and he'll stash the vehicle away. That way later on you can come pick it up. The same goes, and now I will be loading up the base. At the army base itself, there is a person called the Valet. As soon as you take the base over, control it, he is there. And what he does is similar. If you want to store a vehicle, he has the option of leaving it, in which case he will hold on to it. So if you want him to hold the vehicle for you, you tell him leaving, and that's it. You no longer have a vehicle. When you no longer have a vehicle, you also have the option to go in and buy new vehicles. Again, because my character is later on in the game, I have a substantial amount of money on this character right now. either by going to other characters or to the valet when you want to purchase a different vehicle. The vehicles that are shown to you are going to vary on how much cash you have on hand right now, as well as what's available through your current game level. This character set I think is at game level 12, and he's got over 1.5 million, so he has pretty much every option. You just need to go through, choose which vehicle you like, and at that point you can simply go through and buy it. On the army base itself, this shed that is towards the entryway will actually show your vehicle that either you currently have or you last had. One tip is that before you buy a vehicle, I would suggest that you go through and quick save the game. That way if you want to buy a new vehicle, you can look through, buy it, then you can look at it in your inventory screen, look at it in the garage, and just generally see if it's something that appeals to you. Obviously the bigger, better vehicles are going to have a lot more storage, but also the other stats such as their vehicle speed, noise, that will change slightly. The reason I'd say quick save is if you do buy a vehicle and you decide you really don't like it, you can simply hit the quick load button and then go back through to purchase a new one. You can continue doing this until you've seen if that's something you want or not. For example, this is the BTR, which is one of the best that you can get. It's going to have a lot more health, or the armor. It's also going to have a lot more storage. So it's just going to be up to you personally which one you would like to be able to do. Generally when you're starting off the game, you're not going to have a whole lot of money, but after a few missions you'll have enough to upgrade. The starter car that you get, which is a little Ford vehicle, has very little storage. Because you can get the truck after just a few levels in the game, I think it took me maybe a few hours of playing to be able to get access to it. But if you decide that you want a little bit better vehicle earlier, again, there's a pretty big selection of what's available. So you have the basic Ford, and it goes all the way through Willys Jeeps, Gaz. They have Hummers or out trucks such as what I had, and then it goes into the larger tracked vehicles. I'll go back to another save so I can show some of the other features. So by having the different vehicles with their inventory as you go out and you're doing missions where there's a lot more loot, being able to take and hold all of that's going to make life a lot better. When you're first starting off, storage is going to be one of those issues because you don't yet have access to the army base, and you might want to be able to carry a lot more loot. Obviously the more loot you can get, the more you can sell. The more you sell, the more money you have. The more money you have, the more equipment you can buy, the more mercenaries you can hire. So especially starting off early in the game when you don't really have much, the more loot you can carry, the better off you're going to be. So the bigger the vehicle storage you have, the better you're going to be. Personally, I will go in and I will invest a substantial amount of my money into the best vehicle that I can carry, and then use that vehicle storage to make more money, which then I can use to make better gear, and so on. As far as your vehicle's stats, I'm going to go ahead and load one of the other games further on. That way viewing the map is not going to give away too many spoilers as far as locations. So once you're on the map, this was covered slightly in one of the earlier tutorials for travel, but I can go ahead and give a little bit more the information now. As noted before, on the map screen, you have a slider bar to choose the speed of your vehicle's movement. Obviously, the faster the vehicle's speed, the faster you're going to get to your destinations, but the more noise you're going to make. You can adjust that as you deem fit. As you adjust the speed, you will see the routes that they travel do change. So for example, if I wanted to travel down here on the highest speed possible, that is obtained by traveling on the roads. As you lower the speed, you'll see them start to take a more direct route. That is because they know that the speed itself is slower, so they don't need to stay on the road if they can go off-road. The reason you might choose to go at a slower speed is because you're wanting to avoid being caught by different other factions, or you want to avoid some of the random missions that might generally happen more often on the roads than off the road. As far as the other options that go along with the vehicles, again, I'm going to go back to the army base itself. This is where some of those spoilers kick in, so if you'd rather not have some of these spoilers, you might just want to quit the video now. But the army base is going to be one of those missions that early on in the game you have the option to come in and you're supposed to go to the army base and recover an item that is in the storage here. So when you spawn in, you're probably not going to have that many characters yet, and the base is immediately hostile to you. Again, this is not a walkthrough of that mission, so I'm not going to cover too much about the mission itself. The main thing is, once you've completed the mission, you come in and you have access to a locker for your storage. Inside the locker is going to be a very important item for the rest of the game as far as Blue Sun Mon is concerned, and that's going to be a field radio. The field radio actually has quite a few options, which is going to require its own separate little video later on. But the other things about the army base that many people are probably aware of, either because they've played the game in vanilla before, or they've played Blue Sun Mon before, or they've simply read about it on the forums, is that this is your property. There are different characters that you're able to go through and hire to take up residence at your army base, and they will have different features. Again, when you very first take it over, you will have the valet. His purpose is to store vehicles, and you're also able to purchase new vehicles from him. In addition to the valet, every sector that you control is going to have a mayor. The mayor is who you would speak to perform operations such as managing your militia, tax rates, things like that. One of the other people that you will have access to is a doctor. Once this doctor has been taken to your base, you have the option to heal up your different characters. In doing so, you will then be able to do it. He's still going to charge you, but it's a cheaper amount to heal this way instead of going to the doctors that are in some of the bigger cities. It also takes a lot less time. I've had times where if I tried to heal somebody at a hospital, it might take 7 to 10 hours game time, while it would only take maybe 1 or 2 hours with this doctor. Also because he is here in a base that you control. Later on in the game, if you're hostile to some of those cities where the hospitals are located, trying to go in and heal in those cities is very tricky. If you don't want to have to do combat in order to go heal, this is the easy way to do it. One of the other characters you'll have access to is a mechanic. Generally what this mechanic can do is he can repair your weapons, So just like any of the repair kits that you're able to access, he can repair your items. You don't have a failure chance, it's just instant and it's at no charge. There are some merchants that will repair your weapons, but they will charge you quite a bit for doing so. Another option that he has is that depending on the vehicle that you have, you can upgrade that vehicle. It's a one-time upgrade, so when you speak to the mechanic, you have the option to upgrade your vehicle. I might be able to show you with the Ford. I've already done it with the truck. So again, you must actually have a vehicle in your inventory. So right now we have the basic Ford starter car. I'm pretty sure this one can be upgraded. So you'll see an option where he says you want to upgrade your car. He'll then tell you how much the upgrade will cost you. Once you have done so, the vehicle will now be considered an upgraded variant. So if I look at my stats, you can see this is the Mark II for that car. I am not completely sure everything that the upgrade does, but from my understanding that means it's going to repair damage that was done to it. It also gives it a little bit stronger resistance to fire. It might increase its road speed slightly, might increase its storage capacity slightly. I'm not quite sure what it does, but the fact that it's there, and it can be expensive, but the fact that it's a feature that is there, why not? Some of the other characters that you're going to have, again, these are obtained through missions. You will have a trader who you're able to speak with, who will have a fairly decent selection of arms. This is obviously going to be based on your current game level. So if you do see weapons and equipment in here right now, don't freak out if it's not something that you have available on your character. But they'll generally have a pretty good selection of the equipment without you having to try and jump back and forth to all the different merchants. They'll have a pretty good selection. Unfortunately, you have to go all the way to your base to have access to this, and he doesn't always have everything at once available. There are a couple other characters that you're able to get at the base, but I probably should not cover them because they are a little bit more spoiler oriented. Other than that, the army base itself doesn't really have any other functions as far as once you're physically there. There are containers around that you can loot. That will be covered in a later guide. But that generally covers vehicles. My personal preference is get the vehicle that you can with the highest storage as soon as you can. When you can afford it, do the upgrade. But don't worry too much about a vehicle's speed. It doesn't matter if it's the slowest vehicle or the fastest vehicle. Their speed difference isn't going to make that much of a difference. But it does make a huge difference compared to your movement speed on the map with no vehicle at all. I would also say be careful when you do spawn in. Try not to take fire or direct fire at your vehicle too much. You do not want your vehicle to become damaged, especially to the point where it explodes. If you decide that you want to upgrade your vehicle to something better, I would say go to your valet and park it instead of trying to have a bartender hold on to it. This video probably took a little bit longer than I hoped, but it hopefully should have covered some of the good information on vehicles. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and let me know.